thank you very much for having me, and it's really a pleasure to be part of the Data Science Summit. So as mentioned, I am the Chief Data Scientist for the New South Wales Government, but also an Industry Professor at the University of Technology. I spend most of my time within government looking at uses of data, which include artificial intelligence, but more generally, data sharing and use for a whole range of different analytics projects to generate insights, but also to feed or to train artificial intelligence to generate insights or alarms, alerts, decisions or actions. Over the course of the years I've been with New South Wales Government, we've been on quite a data and artificial intelligence journey. We've been increasingly ambitious about the number of data sets, the type of data sets we use to try and address really wicked challenges, and always trying to push the boundary of appropriate use of machine learning and AI. We recently released an AI assurance framework which helps us do that as we continue on our journey. So thanks for the question. That's a great question. So digital transformation is hard. That's the first point. There are some really hard components around that with regard to appropriate use of data, governance around use of data, cybersecurity to underpin the ongoing security of that transformation. But the biggest issue around transformation is that it's actually hard. It takes a long time, a lot longer than you would think, and it gets difficult at times. So you need to keep pressing on. Transformation is literally something that requires a series of steps and a series of building a case for change, because some of what we're trying to do is cultural, some of it's technical, some of it is standards-based, and some of it really is that governance layer. But ultimately, it's about bringing your organization along, addressing in bite-sized chunks the process change, the attitude change, the cultural change, and the rewards are increased use and access to data which is inside your organization. Increased use of really powerful insights, not just for operational issues, dashboards and such things, but really for strategic movement forward. The ability to understand your business better, to understand your customers better, to understand your impact on the world better. It really is quite an amazing thing to do. But when we go back to that first point, it's hard and it's got a lot of dimensions to it, including data, including security, and including governance, but most importantly, cultural change. That's a really, really wonderful question, because it's actually quite difficult to answer. But I think one of the biggest problems I've seen is that people get locked into a particular approach. I mentioned before that transformation is hard and you need to do it in phases. You need to build and prove the case, build the case for change, and then take the next big bite, more resources, more people, more stakeholders, and then take another big bite and do it in phases. But at some point, you might realize that the approach you're taking is actually not the right approach. And the biggest mistake I've seen people commit, it really is sticking to a failed strategy for far, far, far too long. It's a hard question to answer. When is this strategy running out of steam? When is this approach realized not to be the right approach? So often people stick with it, and to the point where the whole transformation process starts to fail. So part of it being hard, part of the transformation being hard, is when to say we need to go in a different direction. And one of the things about transformation is you're literally trying to change your organization into something else, which means by definition, you've never done it before, which means by definition, you're not 100% certain how to do it. So the reason for suggesting that transformation comes in horizons or comes in phases is that you're building the confidence with yourself, with your colleagues, with your organization, with the leadership, with the board. You're building the confidence that this is the right direction, and the uncertainty that you're staring into is something that you can iteratively reduce. You can iteratively build confidence by taking that first step, and then a larger step, and then a larger step. And being able to get to the end, all the things around technology, around cybersecurity, around cultural change, and you've done it in a way that you've brought people along. But the courage to say, this step, we need to pivot or we need to change direction, is a really powerful decision that needs to be made when you're going through that transformation process. And sticking with a failed strategy is not something that wins any friends. Having the courage to pivot and acknowledge that you've not got something completely right and you need to take a deviation is actually a really powerful, liberating, but difficult decision to take. In particular, I think we've been through a couple of hype cycles around data usage and a couple of hype cycles around use of artificial intelligence. But I think we really are starting to get to the point where these are really powerful. So a lot of organizations have gone back to fundamentals about the use of data in their organization, which means that not only are you building the engineering, are they building the engineering platforms, the data platforms, building the insights, building the teams, but really starting to think about appropriate use, getting the governance right, reframing the conversation in terms of the outcomes you're looking to achieve, not just the outputs, not just the decisions, not just the insights, not just the dashboards, but really how you're looking to change the impact your business has in the real world. And that reframing of the conversation around outcomes is an important one. There's also an acknowledgement that everybody in the company needs to understand use of data. And not everyone needs to be a data scientist, but everybody needs enough understanding of what sort of questions can you ask, what sort of questions are difficult to ask through data and analytics, and an understanding of that appropriate use of data and appropriate use of insights. Increasingly, we've seen that we can do amazingly powerful things with AI and with machine learning. And the questions we need to be able to ask ourselves are, should we be doing this? What is the appropriate use of this insight or this alarm or alert or decision or an action? And what guidance do we need to give to the next person or the next user in the data lifecycle when we've generated their insight? What guidance do we need to give them? What instruction, what prohibition, what framework, what structure do we need to put around that next step in order to ensure that we're moving towards the outcomes we want, not away from it? That's really about the maturity of organizations' use of data analytics. And I think around about 2020, we all got the point that this actually is serious. It really does work. And so regrounding around those fundamentals is something I've seen quite a few organizations undertake, and certainly it's something that's also happening in government. Well, New South Wales has been on a data and analytics journey for some time. COVID showed us just how important and valuable, showed all of government just how important and valuable use of timely analytics and a variety of data sets are. But it also showed the importance of governance. We released our artificial intelligence strategy in 2020, our smart city strategy in 2020, but we released our data strategy not until 2021. And over the course of the last year, we've been bringing all of those pieces together to create an artificial intelligence assurance framework. This is the assurance framework we should apply, in fact now must apply, across use of machine learning and AI inside New South Wales government. It was released in December 2021. It became a mandatory tool in March this year, in 2022, so it's very fresh. And what I'm going to talk about is some of the tensions and considerations that went into building that assurance framework, highlight some of the aspects of that framework, some of the fundamentals of it, and then talk through how it's being applied in New South Wales and ongoing lessons that we're still learning.